Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Prince Edward County. What a fabulous venue, a fabulous day. We are ready to energize and engage today. How many of you have experienced teeny tiny summits before? We have a very loyal following to Teeny Tiny Summits. It's so exciting. My name's Carolyn Peterbow. I work with the Ministry of Rural Affairs. And Teeny Tiny Summits were started in 2016 when it became apparent to some of our staff who worked in rural Ontario that communities wanted to engage in economic development, but they didn't have the right tools to do it because the tools weren't fitting small places. And so Teeny Tinies evolved into something where we share stories, we share examples, we share tactics that work in communities so communities can take those ideas and they can apply them in their communities. And it's just so incredible to look out here today and see all of these faces who are here to talk about what you can do, not what you can't do. What you can empower. You know, if it is to be, it is up to me. So we are just so excited you're here to be part of a Teeny Tiny Summit. We have a very full day ahead of us. We have some wonderful speakers, both from afar and locally, who are going to share what they have experienced, what they have practiced, those lessons learned on the ground. And we're very excited to have them here today. We are going to begin at this time with a land acknowledgement, and I'm going to ask Emily Cowan to come forward, and Emily will deliver a land acknowledgement and then tell us a little bit about our partners who brought the event here today from Prince Edward County. So, Emily.
Thanks, Carolyn, and welcome, everyone. It's so great to see you all. It's so great to see the sun shining. We weren't sure that was going to happen, so far, so good. I just want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples who have inhabited this land from the beginning. We thank the generations of Indigenous people who have cared for and stewarded this land for thousands of years, and we recognize and deeply appreciate their historic and enduring connection to this land. Today, the County of Prince Edward is home to many First Nations and Métis peoples, and we are so grateful for the opportunity to meet here, work here, and continue the stewardship of this land alongside its original caretakers. Understanding this rich history is vital to fostering respectful relationships and ensuring that our efforts to improve our communities honor the contributions and perspectives of Indigenous peoples. And as we gather here today for the Teeny Tiny Summit, we are joined by municipalities from across the region. This summit provides an invaluable opportunity for us to come together, share ideas, and learn from one another in the spirit of collaboration. And our goal is to find ways to make our communities better for everyone. And we recognize that this work must be done with the awareness that the well-being of our First Nation residents and neighbors is central to our efforts. So, throughout the day, if you have any questions or concerns, please look for county staff, vibrant yellow name tags. Put your hands up if you're a county staff member who will be able to answer questions. Perfect. So anyway, have a look. Also, in case you don't already know, there's washrooms over there, just outside in that little building there. And lots of doors, but there's an exit back there if you need to leave quickly. So I would like to really take this time to thank our sponsors. Getting sponsorship to support this event means that we can keep our ticket prices as low as possible and reduce the barrier to people being able to come and experience this amazing day. So I would like to thank the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, the Quinte Home Builders Association, the Community Futures Prince Edward, Lennox, and Addington, and I'd like to thank the Department of Illumination who have brought some amazing artistic ideas and excitement and installations to us today. So thank you to our sponsors. And finally, for my part, I would like to introduce our own mayor of Prince Edward County, His Worship Stephen Ferguson. If you could come forward and say a few words, we would appreciate it.
A little closer to the stage. Morning, everybody. What a terrific gathering this morning. I will be brief because you have a very full day ahead of you. But let me first of all welcome everyone to this year's Teeny Tiny Summit, particularly those who have come from outside Prince Edward County. We have elected officials here. We have staff members from outside the county. We have an extraordinary number of people participating in panels who have traveled to Prince Edward County. The theme of this year's summit is Engage and Energize, Empowering Teeny Tiny Places. Teeny Tiny Summits, as was mentioned, began in 2016 as a forum to discuss scale-appropriate economic development strategies for Ontario's smallest communities. More than 140 people are attending this year's summit from across the region. The keynote speaker this year is Peter Kenyon. Mr. Kenyon is a renowned social capitalist and community enthusiast from Bank of Ideas in Australia. So welcome to Mr. Kenyon to Prince Edward County. Following his address, participants will break into small groups and engage with each other in facilitated discussions around key rural community issues. I want to thank the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, ROMA, for funding today's keynote speaker, the Minister of Rural Affairs, the Honorable Lisa Thompson, and the Ministry of Rural Affairs staff itself, who have worked with our county staff to deliver the program content. I particularly want to express gratitude to those hardworking Prince Edward County staff members from across many departments who work tirelessly to pull together this exciting and engaging program, particularly Emily Cowan, who was up here a minute ago, Karen Palmer, Sarah Harvey, Jackie Elliott, and Ella Ziegler, among many, many others who were identified with the yellow lanyards. I'd also like to acknowledge municipal councillors who are going to be participating today. Phil St. Jean is here, Kate McNaughton is here, and I think Sam Grosso will be coming here as well to join in the panel discussions. It was mentioned earlier about elected officials from throughout the region. Can I see a show of hands of any elected officials who are here participating, county and otherwise? It's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming to the county, and I hope you enjoy your time here. This year's program reflects many of the issues Prince Edward County has faced in recent years, and these are issues that are shared by many rural municipalities. Expanding affordable housing, encouraging local economic development, and strengthening our community are some of our community's top priorities that our council is seeking to address through our strategic plan. Conferences like this, the Teeny Tiny Summit, allow like-minded people to come together, learn from each other, and share tactics that work in each other's communities. I'm really excited about the program that I've seen outlined so far, and I'm sure everyone is going to walk away today engaged and energized. Again, welcome everyone, and I hope you all have a productive summit. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mayor Ferguson. The county has always played had a big piece of my heart because of my husband worked here when he graduated from university. This was the first place he worked, and he lived in the county for a year or so. And it was, we always loved coming here, and now some of our closest friends live in the county. So we'll travel here quite regularly to spend time and to remember those early days of life before kids and when jobs were new and all those exciting times. And today, I hope you have a chance to listen to the many leaders in the room and to recognize some of the opportunity that exists within the power you have within yourselves. Peter lent me or gave me a book yesterday that I was reading that they've pulled together to support volunteers, because in small places, often a lot of the events, a lot of the things that happen are driven by volunteers. And it talked about ways to recognize volunteers, ways to encourage volunteers, why volunteers might not decide to continue doing things. And some of the quotes in it, where there's one by Lily Tomlin, says, "I always wondered why somebody didn't do something about that, and then I realized I was somebody." Yeah, that's a great one. And another one I read was Rise by Lifting Others. And I thought, when I've been involved in things and I do them, when you work and you do projects all the time and you deliver events, it's really great if you do it by yourself and you're fast and you're efficient. But it's much more rewarding when you work with a team and you're able to deliver something and all boats rise with the rising tide. And I think that's what you are going to find here today, is you're going to have that opportunity to connect with like-minded people who are interested in supporting their communities and improving their communities. And I hope that if you can take anything away from it is the Lily Tomlin quote was, I realize I am somebody, and you can take this and act on it. So it gives me great pleasure today to introduce Peter Kenyon. He is our keynote speaker. As our mayor had said, Peter is a community enthusiast. He comes from the Bank of Ideas, which is located in Australia. So he's come a long way to be with us today. Last year, I had the pleasure of introducing Peter to all the ministers of rural economic development between the provinces and our federal government. And Peter was one of the speakers at a rural summit that talked about how we can support rural communities in Canada. And Peter is particularly passionate about small town reinvention. He's worked with over 2,000 rural communities to help them spark their own ideas and seek solutions that really encourage them to invest within themselves. He has delivered a program called the Community Builders Program, and it's a grassroots leadership program that essentially Peter works directly with communities to develop their own plans for their own community. And he has written, how many, Peter? Hundreds? Hundreds of plans, and supported communities to be able to make the most of their own. So Peter today is going to speak on the topic, but first I would like to bring up Nathan from the town inn. He is the deputy mayor of Loyalist Township. He is also the warden of Lennox and Addington. And Roma has made it possible to bring Peter here today. So Roma supports Peter's time with the Teeny Tiny Summits. And Nathan, if you would like to come up and say a few words, we would really appreciate that. Roma became involved with Teeny Tiny Summits in 2019.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be brief. Yes, I am the deputy mayor of Loyalist Township. Just a little bit that way. I live in a rural community myself, Amherst Island, which you can see from the county if you keep going a little further east. And today, it is my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Roma board and Chair Lowry to bring greetings today to the summit. Rural Affairs has done a great job in connecting community leaders on important issues on the health and sustainability of Ontario's rural communities, which is at the heart of the mission of the Rural Ontario Municipal Association. Hearing from Pam Saini, who's one of my colleagues on the board, Roma's liaison to rural affairs and the Teeny Tiny Summits, I can say that I have been so impressed with the people, projects, and passion that these summits provide and profile. And the conversations that these summits provide are not only critical to the planning for the future of our rural communities, but they are also truly inspiring. And they remind us of the benefits and beauty of living, working, and growing Ontario's rural life. And they highlight possibility. They highlight innovation, creativity, commitment. As was mentioned, today's keynote speaker, Peter Kenyon, is a longtime advocate and activist on the possibility and beauty of rural communities. So thank you, Peter, for being here. It is wonderful that you are here to inspire our efforts and thinking. Roma is proud of our partnership with the Ministry of Rural Affairs and that we can continue to share important information and inspire one another to make our rural communities even more amazing. The Roma board has a very strong relationship with Minister Thompson, whom we are so glad, of course, to have been reappointed to her role in cabinet, built on shared commitment of strengthening rural Ontario. And the Roma board is dedicated to ensuring rural Ontario is represented and heard in all of Ontario's decision making, and we want you to know that. So let's learn and plan together today for all our home communities. It's a great opportunity to keep the inspiration of rural Ontario going. And before I conclude, I just want to thank Rural Affairs and Carolyn for the great job in putting this together, and I hope to discuss all of these topics with many of you later today. Thank you very much.
And a big thank you to Roma for being a key part of delivering Teeny Tiny Summits. Years ago, Liz Daniels, who was one of the representatives for Roma, she saw the importance of these types of events, but recognized to keep them attainable and from a cost perspective to communities, there was going to need to be support to do that. And that's how the partnership began. Just to go over our agenda for the day, you can see we've got a packed agenda. We start with our keynote with Peter. After that, we will have a short break. And then we will have our session on getting to rural affordable housing and then a tip session on fostering YIMBYism before lunch. So we have a packed morning. I will now, and then in the afternoon, we are actually going to do breakout sessions. And after lunch, you're not going to come back here. You're going to go directly to your breakout session. And they're really well labeled. You can see we've got one on each side. We've got one in the room behind us. And we've got the leadership one is actually where the lunch is. And it's right on your name tag where you are going to head or what session you're going to head to. And we'll have lots of staff available to support you at that time to get you in the right place. On your name tag, you'll notice there is a code on the back. If you are wondering anything about the agenda, if you use your phone to pull that up, that will pull up the agenda. You will also see around the room there's a number of QR codes on tell us, give us your feedback. So that's an evaluation code that if you use that on your phone, it'll pull it up. We will email a link out to you as well afterwards. We also always are asked, will we have access to the materials afterwards? And yes, we will. Anybody who's registered, we will reach out afterwards with any of the materials that we have, that we're able to share. So I think that's all the housekeeping. Are we ready? Are we ready for a great day? I'm so happy to turn it over to Peter Kenyon now, is growing your community while your community grows. Let's give a round welcoming to Peter.
These are jumping. Great. You need to, yeah, that's it. Great. Good. Okay. Thank you very much. It's such a privilege to be back here in Canada. particularly at this time where we're going through a tumultuous world. We have that fellow down south that's kind of like causing chaos and confusion to all of us. But boy, isn't it an exciting time to focus back on the grassroots, the bottom up, the inside out. And I just want to start by firstly acknowledging the traditional owners of this land. I come from the land of the Noongar people in a place called Kalamunda. Kalamunda is a Noongar word. It means home in the forest. So I just happen to be 37 hours away by plane from you up there, and I'm from that land, and I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners from here, and a privilege to be on your lands. I want to acknowledge all the sponsors and the people who've made this happen, the municipality, Roma, and particularly my friends in the Ministry of Rural Affairs. This is actually the 10th year I've been coming out here for these tiny town or teeny tiny summits. And boy, they are such a highlight when that opportunity exists. I don't know how I coped during COVID when it wasn't the possibility to be here. We still did some online, but boy, it's great to be here because I hope as I illustrate my stories, and they're from Australia, you'll see so many similarities that actually exist about those of us who have chosen and love living in teeny tiny towns and the lifestyle and the opportunities that they actually bring with us. So thank you very much for that privilege of being here. I want to begin, and I'm sorry about the slides. It's a magnificent building. I love it, but the light. There are some empty seats down the front. I need to say there was 2 free tickets to Paris on one of the front seats here, but given the fact you all love to sit back, you'd have missed that opportunity. But the reason I'm firstly excited is to be back in Canada, because believe it or not, my great-grandfather migrated from a little place called March Township near Ottawa almost 150 years ago. Came out for the gold rushes, and as a migrant, he stayed, and his family continued on. My background is that John Headley, who actually had that property, which still exists, just out of Ottawa. Always a privilege to go back to where your roots are. So there's a bit of Canada in me. And I need to say, one of his grandkids, Bruce Headley, who happens to be my father, went on to create the biggest construction company in the Southern Hemisphere. So migrants can actually make a huge difference to our communities and whatever. Went on to create the biggest contract mining company in the world. So we have so much to be indebted to kind of like these people that came out there from Canada. I need to say we share a lot in common, and particularly this guy, as I said, is causing us chaos. And I need to say what a privilege to be here in Canada and see the way that you are fighting back. I just am in awe of what's going on. It's just amazing. And just to wander around and see the way that you are being proactive and just reminding people we can do something about this. And part of it, and the starting point, is to buy and shop local. Let's get behind our local businesses and whatever. And I need to say I love this campaign called Elbows Up. And I think I'm going to take home my Elbows bar of chocolate to kind of like remind people. I just think your passion about this stuff is just amazing, and we share kind of like that in common. What we don't share in common is our weather. I need to say that is what I'm used to where I live in Western Australia. That's summer, that's winter. To yesterday morning to open the door of the magnificent place here in Picton, to be hit by this 2 degrees, it almost blew me off the balcony. I just couldn't believe how bloody cold it is. And this is meant to be your kind of like springtime, but we kind of like do that. And for those of you who remember what your wonderful snow Christmas was like, this was our kind of like Christmas. That's how we celebrate Christmas, usually at the beach and enjoying it there. We share so much in common, except the weather, and can I say, the accent. You have by far the cutest accent, I think, on the planet. And I only wish I could have kept that from my Canadian heritage and whatever. Second reason I'm excited to be here, this is Picton. This is Prince Edward County. I was here actually 15 years ago for a creative economy conference that actually happened here. And I need to say, every time I come back here and through this area, I'm blown away at the incredible assets, the physical assets, the cultural assets And above all, the people assets I keep discovering here. The passion has been amazing. And to have an opportunity to kind of like spend yesterday wandering and interacting with some of your businesses here, again, I was just reminded how creative, how passionate, and how fantastic. To walk up your main street, I've never kind of like been in a place where all you've got to do is point and cars stop and allow you to walk off the road. In Australia, they just run you over. Here, everyone is so polite. But also, you've got amazing history here. You've come from that. You've got these amazing buildings, that picture theatre. I'm an Art Deco freak, and that is a stunning kind of like bit of heritage that you've restored and the businesses associated with it. And you know what I loved? I loved the sign that was actually on the front of it. Thank you to our volunteers. And again, one of the things we've got to get to understand is volunteerism across the globe is going like that since COVID. We actually, in a country of only 25 million people, now have 1.5 million less volunteers than we had 5 years ago. Our population's gone up 4 million, volunteerism's going like that. How do we get people back? And a part of it is not about recruiting volunteers, it's about keeping them. And how do we thank them? How do we get behind them? It's all part of the juices that we need to kind of like make sure we keep going. I just love that sign. I thought that was amazing. And some of the businesses, if you haven't been to the ice cream shop in your main street, where else on the planet can you get apple pie ice cream? Made literally from 6 apple pies. They make the pies first and out of it, the ice cream. And those two amazing women, kind of like Abby there who owns it and her key woman, they're just amazing in terms of their customer service. And then the other businesses, you've been to the local, I'm sure all the locals have, the commitment of kind of like Janice that runs that to just only house local products. And the range of products in there is just out of this world. The quality of it, absolutely phenomenal. And again, her passion about supporting other people, other artists, other businesses. Boy, it reminded me that's what grows businesses, is when we kind of like connect with each other, where we talk each other up. Simple stuff. It's not flyers to get people in. It's word of mouth. It's people saying, you know what, you can't afford not to go and get one of those ice creams. I'm going to get one before I leave tonight. Make sure you call in there and say you've been recommended. They are amazing. Go into this shop. And then the creativity, if you haven't seen that yarn shop and what's there in that main street, just illustrations of what you've got here. And for me, it really is what we need to be about if we want our small towns to grow. It's that type of customer service that the most important resource we have in community are people who care. And I want to just acknowledge everyone in this room. You care to turn up here. I'm sure you didn't come for the lunch. You've come because you care about your community and you care to connect, you care to learn, you care to pick up new ideas, you care about your community. And there's this famous Canadian, Paul Bourne from Tamarack, put it so well, the greatest asset in any community is people who care. And I've come to the conclusion, you know what community development's about? What community building is all about? It's simply about discovering what people care about and who else cares about that and what we're going to do about it. That's what community building is all about. And therefore, the most critical question that you can ask anyone in your community is, what do you care about? Don't ask them what's the matter. Ask them what matters to them. Almost the same words, but boy, does it elicit a totally different response. And that, to me, is what community building's all about, discovering what people care about and who else cares about that. And what are we together going to do and make that happen? I want to acknowledge everyone in the room here who's a volunteer. How many volunteers in the room? To you, I'm in awe. Volunteers, as I've already stated, is really becoming a bit of a threatened species on the planet. We've got to rebuild this thing called active citizenship. And to me, I love that. I want to thank and pay tribute to all of those volunteers, those dedicated to believe in all work and no pay. And it seems to me that is what it's actually all about. Recently, I was in a tiny town to celebrate the volunteers in that town. And as I walked into the room, I was greeted by this mother and son holding up that placard. Don't ever question the value of volunteers. Noah's Ark was built by volunteers. The Titanic was built by professionals. And to me, I just want to again really acknowledge everyone in this room who's here, not because they're paid to be here. They're here because they are putting their hands up and getting involved in their community. Thirdly, I'm excited to be here because I know today, from the experience of previous workshops, will be a day of learning. And you know what? The number one value, the number one gift, the number one characteristic of an effective community builder is to be a continuous learner. Those of you who think you know it all, you're a waste of space in terms of where this world's currently at. What we need to be doing is looking at our communities with fresh eyes continually. We need to be looking at them and saying, what can I do smarter? What can I do better? What can I do more effective? And I hope today, as you listen to the wonderful range of people who will be presenting and facilitating, that your thoughts will always be going back to your community. What am I going to do with what I'm hearing today? What am I going to do different tomorrow is in fact the final question that I'm going to ask you this afternoon. As you walk out of this building, what are you going to do different tomorrow? And to me, that's the value of coming together. Not to listen to people like me, but what you will encounter as you engage in this thing called conversation. The oldest tool we have in the toolbox for building community is called conversation. And I hope today we'll use those breaks and lunches and the groups we're in to engage in this thing called conversation with each other. And through that, all grow in our knowledge. One of my favourite heroes in Canada is a guy called Moses Cody out of Nova Scotia, that Catholic priest who in the 1920s and 30s turned around all those poor communities in the Maritimes. He was an amazing guy. In a 10-year period, helped to initiate over 1,000 cooperatives where poor farmers and poor fisher folk came together and began to use through the cooperative to create new meaningful opportunities. And I love his quote, the person who has ceased to learn ought not be allowed to wander around in these dangerous times. And to me, it's an incredible quote. And today, what a privilege, what a gift we all have to kind of like come together and learn from each other, leapfrog on what each other's is actually doing. The fifth reason I'm excited to be here is I am a passionate, small, teeny, tiny town person. This is where I come from. It's called Marble Bar, population 247 people. It's up there in the hottest part of the country, up in the Pilbara. Stunning kind of like landscapes. I'm sorry you can't see them. Absolutely stunning. But why are we famous as a small town? Well, we officially are the hottest town in Australia. And the reason why we are the hottest town in Australia, and we promote that, is in 1932-33, the temperature went over 100 degrees Fahrenheit for 167 consecutive days. That's like 5 months the temperature was over 100 degrees. That's why we're famous. We are hardened, hot people who live up in that particular part. And so when we started to talk about what's our kind of like competitive gifts and advantages, what is it that we can work with, we came up with this thing, it's called heat tourism. We should promote this thing called heat tourism. So we do have the most amazing selfie spots where you can be photographed in the hottest town, kind of like in Australia. We have a thermometer in the main park where you can do a selfie under what the temperature is at the time. And that's become incredible. Simple thing, but boy, everyone wants to do that and flick it around the world. You can't see it, but that's the Ironclad pub, our local pub. It promotes itself outside 47 degrees, inside 24 degrees. Beer, -2 degrees. That to me is kind of like effective marketing. It's all part of what we're doing. And then the ultimate thing happened, kind of like about 6 months ago, when this woman who has developed a whole new range of what she calls bed linen for hot women. Women going through menopause, she said, need kind of like special bed linen. And so if you've developed a whole range of bed linen for hot women, where's the only place in Australia that launched the campaign? Called Marble Bar. The locals grabbed hold of it. She said, I'm going to produce a documentary about all of this and the humour of a woman with doing things for hot women in Marble Bar, and it was screened, this actual movie was screened at the Sydney kind of like film festival, and 3 million people have actually seen this documentary. Just an amazing marketing opportunity. But how did it happen? She kind of like contacted the community, i.e. the local pub, and said, listen, what I need is 7 hot women to kind of like help me do it. And if you can only see it, this is the campaign. You can't see it, but that's her laying on our marble rock. Had to be at 4 a.m. in the morning because the temperature was already 33 degrees at 4 a.m. And these are the 7 hot women who offered to kind of like be part of the campaign and whatever. You know what? Every community, irrespective of its size, has immense assets. Physical assets, people assets, cultural assets, story assets that we can build upon. And the starting point, I always believe in community building, is actually doing an asset map. Not a needs map, not working out what you haven't got. Start with what you have got in terms of it. And so it's amazing when communities come together and say, what is it we can build upon? What are those starting points, windows of opportunity? That was for us what it was all about. So that whole campaign, which was then broadcast across Australia, called Australia's Hottest Women campaign, she's ended up selling a massive number of kind of like bed linen, even to kind of like men. It's just amazing how that all went. The thing I love about living in a small town is when you don't know what you're doing, someone else does. And that is that sense of connection that we've actually got in community. I also love this quote, people in small towns, much more than in cities, share a destiny. And people do connect to hometown. People do, and that's one of the great assets. Are you keeping connection to all those young people over the last 60 years who have left your town? Are you regularly in touch with them? Are you regularly reminding them of how great their hometown is? Regularly reminding them about opportunities to come back and visit? Regularly reminding them of opportunities to kind of like become part of? To me, that's become such an important part of the economic development life of our towns that we need to be part of. And the thing we've got to remember is the sun does not kind of like forget a village because it's small. And I'm amazed at what I'm seeing happening across small towns. The thing we've got to be aware of is the future ain't what it used to be. And we need to be constantly kind of like looking at those communities and saying, how do we do things better, new, fresh, and whatever. And I suppose that's the value of what all these towns and these conferences and workshops are all about. You've listened enough. Let's discover who's here. Can everyone hop up? That means stand. Hop up. And you've got 90 seconds to move around this room and meet 2 people you do not know and say why you're here today. 2 people. Move. Put one foot in front of the other. Okay. Okay. Can everyone move to a second person? You got 40 seconds. Move to a second person. Okay. Would everyone like to grab a seat now? Back to your seats. Okay. Okay. Oh. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I just hope you've encountered two people. Do not miss the opportunity. You've got the most passionate people in this region here today who all care about small towns. Use the time to discover the incredible people, assets and experiences here. Can we very quickly also discover who we've got in the room? If I yell out a category that's you, what I want you to do is with your arms like this, or no, here in Canada, let's use the elbows. Go, that's me. Can we try that? That's me. Oh, come on, hold it. Imagine Trump is on the stage. That's me. I hope they're not going to depend on you. Okay. All those people under 20 in the room. Lesson number 1 today, don't come to another one of these workshops unless you bring someone under 20 with you. They're not the leaders to tomorrow, they are the leaders today with you. They need to be co-conspirators, co-participants in making it. Invite, bring along young people with you. All those people under 40. Can you stand so we can see what an under 40-year-old looks like? Okay. Thank you. All those people between 28 and 45. Keep standing. This is by far the most important group in our small town. These are the ones who buy houses, have babies, pair up. And believe it or not, 90% of businesses are started by this age group. This is the group we need in town. All sit down. All those people under 60. It's me. All those people who'd like to be under 20. And all those people under 90 here. Yeah, that's it. The farmers in the room. Who are the farmers? Come on, be proud of being a farmer. Yeah, that's me. All the people into small business, have a small business. Own a small business. That's good. We've got all those people who work for local government. Okay, a lot of them. All those people who are a councillor, or what do you call them here? Councillor in local government? Yep, a few of them. All those people who are excited to be here today. That's me. Okay, fantastic. The reason I'm excited is this thing called community. And again, this guy created what's called a collective impact. Many of you know that as a technique. What he's not known for is his amazing statement about community. And that's it. I love this woman. If you haven't read her work, Margaret Wheatley, by far the best writer on community building. And I love what she said. Nothing more powerful than a community discovering what it cares about. That's what community building is about. And our role as community builders, as facilitators, is to host conversations where that's discovered. That's our number one job. Not to run programs and services, but to host conversations, get people kind of like ignited and excited about what they care about. How many people have met Ernesto Ciroli? There's a few in the audience. Very famous for coming up with a model. One of the things we need to do is facilitate and help people who've got an idea, take it into reality. This guy, probably the most arrogant Italian I've ever met on the planet. We were brought up in the same community in Western Australia. Know Ernesto so well. And he had every right to be arrogant. He went to the best Italian school in Rome, went to the best university in Rome, did a master's degree in development studies, snapped up by the Italian Foreign Aid Service and sent out to East Africa to kind of like help those poor buggers out there get their agriculture together. And so this guy arrives on the banks of the Zambezi River, the biggest river in East Africa. And he is appalled at what's happening locally. He cannot believe locals are so dumb. Here's the greatest water source in all of East Africa and they're doing nothing with it. There's nothing being grown on the banks of the river. He goes into the marketplace in Lusaka and he sees a huge demand for fresh vegetables, particularly tomatoes and zucchinis. Get locals to move, we pay them. And so they were paid to plant tomatoes and zucchinis. And to the absolute joy and excitement of Ernesto, the most ripest and biggest tomatoes you've ever seen started to appear. The most beautiful zucchinis started to appear. But you know what else appeared? 200 hippos out of the Zambezi River and ate the whole lot. And Ernesto was shattered. And he gathered the locals together and said, "Why didn't you tell me about the hippos?" And I said, "Well, you never bothered to ask us. Why do you think we don't grow anything on the banks of the Zambezi River? No fence will keep the strongest animal on the planet." And boy, we discovered a long time ago they do love tomatoes and zucchinis. Based upon that, Ernesto wrote, which I think is one of the best books I know on facilitating change at the local level, called Ripples on the Zambezi. Passion, entrepreneurship, and the rebirth of local economies. And within it, probably the best quote I know about what we call asset-based community development is that the future of every community lies in capturing the passion, the imagination, and resources of its people. And that is what our role is fundamentally all about. If we can do that well, boy, can we support the growth and stability and the sustainability of our small towns. Discovering that is what I believe community building is kind of like fundamentally about. One of your former staff that I learned a lot from, Harold Fleming, some of you in the audience will know Harold, once said, "The wisdom of the community always exceeds the knowledge of the experts." And again, we've got to believe that. The greatest resource we've got in our towns and our little villages are people. And discovering what they care about, what their gifts are, what their experiences have been, is just the starting point for making things actually happen and making our towns start to grow. I want to tell you the story of the second nicest town I know of on the planet after the one you come from, is this place called Coolin. 3 hours out of Perth into the wheat belt. Here in this little town, I can remember being with them 31 years ago. We had 67 people in the room. Their population had shrunk right down to 281. Local bank had just closed down, the local post office had just closed down, and this town came together for a crisis meeting. Are we going to do something, or will the last person turn off the lights when we all depart? The town was shrinking, services were shrinking, and certainly young people didn't want to be found dead in the place. That night, they took the option to do something. That night, they came together into what they called a cow workshop and generated hundreds of ideas based on what they saw as the assets they had in that little wheat belt village town. That was the theme that got them there, and that was their mission statement: to stop the depopulation and the loss of services by doing two things: become a dot on the map, more than a dot on the map, and secondly, to rebuild pride back in that community where we did support our local businesses, where we did send our kids to the local school, where we did think about retiring there, and we did think about getting involved in our town. That was their simple mission, a community and economic development mission. And over the last 30 years, that town has been faithful to that mission. They have put in place a whole pile of initiatives. The first thing they said, we want to be a dot on the map. We used to have a race event 61 years ago. Let's rebirth it. And they created what they call the Coolin Bush Races. A local farmer said, I've got a perfect spot running along a beautiful lake. I'm willing to give that to the community on a lease, $1 for the next 100 years. Literally gave them that property. Community came in and built the infrastructure and created this annual event that goes for 3 days of kind of like the crazy events, lots of drinking, lots of music, lots of just coming together. It's gone on to become one of the most important rural events in the Australian rural calendar. People just flock to it, just absolutely amazing every year what they've pulled off. They have just celebrated their 30th birthday. It's got so popular that the health department now insists that no more than 5,000 people can come to this little town. What do you reckon it took to sell 5,000 tickets this year to that event? Sorry? A day? Try 28 seconds. They went online, and in 28 seconds, this little town in the middle of nowhere, although they would say they're in the middle of everywhere, have kind of like created the most amazing event. This year, that generated $3 million into the local economy over that weekend. That weekend generated $600,000 profit to community groups to spread around the town. That event this year involved 250 volunteers from the community. Not bad for a small town, just demonstrates. But they didn't stop just there. They stupidly asked their young people, what do you reckon would make a difference in our town? And the kids said, it's bloody hot here. We would love a water slide. So a farmer looked on the internet and found a town wanting to sell their water slide, just though it happened to be 3,000 kilometres away on the east coast, and they wanted $25,000 for it. He raised the money in a week, and he and 5 mates drove over the Nullarbor Desert from the west to the east, 3,000 kilometres, dismantled a water slide, put it on their 6 trucks, and then drove 3,000 kilometres back. And today they have the biggest water slide outside of the capital city. Where do you think every family in the hot wheat belt spend their weekends? And alongside it, they built the best pump track. They built a Ninja Warrior course. They have targeted teenage fun activities because they know teenagers can dictate what families want to do. And boy, that's just added. And then they've done the best things to their main street. They've got a wow factor. You drive in, you just go, wow. And there's not an empty shop in that main street. They lost their bank. They were the first ones to create a community bank. That bank over the last 25 years has given back $5 million to the local economy in a financial dividend to put into community services. That place have created an amazing highway called the Tin Horse Highway. They managed to get the Premier of the state, whose name was Gallup, to come and kind of like open the Tin Horse Highway for them. This town did an asset map of their history. Very sad bit of history. The first conscript that was killed in the Vietnam War came from Coolin. His parents ran the post office in Coolin. Corporal Hart, the very first conscript ever killed in that war. And they built Camp Hart alongside the racecourse. Where do you think all the Vietnam vets and today Afghan vets spend their weekends? Here is a town that has welcomed them. One of them so loved the welcome, and a lot of Australia didn't welcome Vietnam vets back. This town did. He decided to move there. He was a builder. He's done 3 housing divisions in the town, built over 60 new houses. People say they can't build houses. This town has done it. How do we do that stuff? And then the pub recently came up and the locals have created a co-op to buy it, changed the name though from pub to hub. That's where the play group also meets. This is where the drinkers are. This is where the women's groups, craft groups are all meeting. They have just done it. Has it made a difference? Well, every other town around them has halved their population in the last 30 years. This town has tripled their population. How did they do it? And the other towns haven't. They did it because of that commitment. And the most interesting thing is last year, more babies were born in Coolin than any other town in Australia per population, because they have attracted that critical 28 to 45 age group. Amazing kind of like change. And when I go and sit with them, and I'm regularly there, I've had this long 30-year relationship with this town, I say, what has made the difference? And very quickly, I want in the last 15 minutes to give you the 7 tips that they have given me to kind of like grow their town, to triple the population and to create a lifestyle that all the other towns in the wheat belt just envy in terms of what they've got. And the first thing is they build leadership. We had a study 40 years ago where at the end of it, they said if we were given a choice of giving a town $50 million or just $2 million, but ensuring they had 20 local leaders, we would go for leaders. I wonder what strategy you have in your town to grow leaders. The most important kind of like thing you can do is to build local capacity, grow the number of people. Leaders is not about kind of like followers. It's about more leaders in terms of how we do things. And to me, what they have really done is actually got people excited in that town. To me, leadership is not a position. It's actually about making things actually happen in your town. I love that cartoon about what Leaders are about doers. It's not about having a position in the town. It's about generating that. And I love that one, despite him being an American, I think, and an ex-president. I think his quote is amazing. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, become more, you're a leader. That's what we need to be multiplying. It's people who can actually stimulate that type of kind of like change within a community. It's about people who can bring people together and get people into collaboration. And you know what? The one thing I love out of this little town in Nebraska, if you want a year of prosperity, grow grass. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow trees. But if you want 100 years of prosperity, grow people. And again, I challenge you. What are you doing in your town to grow leadership? Have you got a strategy? I'm sure you've got a sewage strategy. I'm sure you've got a footpath strategy. I'm sure you've got a tourism strategy. But the most important strategy you need to have is called a leadership development strategy. And you need to commit resources to it. And it's not just about running courses or sending people to leadership programs. It's about often linking people to unique experiences or to mentors or to other people who can help them grow and develop their passion and their skill. The second thing, I believe, is that this town grew because it focused on processes that empowered people to do things. It's not programs or services that make things happen, it's people that actually make things happen. And again, there's some critical things. I think most of our rural communities in Australia, let me tell you, 80% of our inland towns are dying. 20% are not, but 80% are. And it is because of that. They're like a hockey game, where 20,000 people who need the exercise turn up to watch 12 players who don't. And it seems to me that whole model, where today community development, and those of you coming to my workshop this afternoon, be prepared. I'm no longer interested in doing things to people and for people. I'm interested in doing things with people, and above all, creating the space of and by the people. And that is what we need. People like yourself, not there to deliver services and programs, there to kind of like open that space called of and by the people, getting them engaged in the process. And those are the four things that really matter. We've got to actually host conversations. We've got to stimulate people's connection. Community building is all about relationships. It's not about programs, it's about relationships. It's like business. Business is not about products and services. It's about relationships with your customer, with your staff, with your suppliers, all about relationships, engagement, and this thing called collaboration. And again, we need tools that actually help us to kind of like facilitate those type of things. Because conversation is so important. I love that. What most people need is a good listening to. We love to tell people what we're going to do for them. That ain't community building. Engaging people in it is what it's about. And I love that quote by Margaret Wheatley. One of the things we need to learn is that every great change starts from very small conversations held amongst people who care. You've got to see your role as hosting conversations, not running meetings. Big difference. Hosting conversations with people, getting people into dialogue with each other, learning and contributing that way. And they can take lots of forms. I love sitting down with 7 and 8 year olds. They are so creative. They believe they can change the world. They're idealistic. They don't worry what their mates think. What they can do is amazing. Again, when was the last time you sat down with a group of young kids in your kind of like younger school and asked them, what is it? What are their ideas to make a different world? Their world. Amazing what will come out. I love this little town. They've got a wonderful heritage bridge like that. You know what they do every year? They close off the traffic and run a long lunch, and there is a paper tablecloth and people write their ideas down and people engage in conversation about what it is that we love about this place we've got to keep, what do we want to change, and what do we want to start up that we don't have. What a way to kind of like spend a Sunday in a creative kind of like meeting space like that. And that's the two groups that you really got to focus on. Boy, they have so many possibilities in terms of it. Fourth thing that matters about towns is attitude. You know, the very first thing you've got to focus on is mindset within the community. You need to kind of like get your community talking up and not talking down. And I love that quote from the Heartland Centre. You can't move your town to a different location. You can move your town's attitude in a different direction. I cannot believe how many meetings I go to and you're trying to inspire people with stories and someone yells out, "We tried that before and it never worked," as if he's helping. I usually say, back over him in the car park after the meeting. That ain't helpful. Unfortunately, I said that and a local cop was sitting in the front row. He was not impressed and so on. But you know what? We don't need the negativity. We need people talking up and not talking down. And as leaders, that's a critical thing we need to say. Again, I love that quote from the Heartland Centre, reminding us it's the importance of leadership and attitude compared to location and kind of like some other characteristic that we think we really need. That's what we've got to be investing in. That needs to be a priority of those of us in this room who see ourselves as community builders and as community leaders, is to kind of like be catalysts for that stuff happening. One of my favourite leaders is the former mayor of Christchurch, the woman who oversaw that horrific earthquake they had and then that massacre that happened in the Muslim kind of like mosques there and whatever, Vicky Buck. You know what? She used to hand out giraffe awards for people who were prepared to stick out their neck and have a go. She made a phone available for anyone who's got a good idea. I said, "Vicky, what are you doing? You know how many crackpots we have out there? Love it." She said, "I got every one of them." But you know what? Every person, she said, in the course of a shower in the city has thought of a good idea, and I need to be hearing them. Again, that's the type of leadership you need. I love one of her favourite statements. I think negative people should be taxed. They require an incredible amount of energy. They're like corgi dogs nibbling at your ankles, and I'm sure they exist to show us the difference between heaven and hell, you know? We need leaders who call it for that, who are getting people talking up and getting people focused on the positive and whatever. I love another one of the famous, so if in facing a difficult task, act as if it's impossible to fail. When going after Moby Dick, bring along the tartare sauce. Unfortunately, I used that and a whole pile of people from the environmental movement and Greenpeace were there. They were not impressed with that. And I love that cartoon of Snoopy. Someday we will all die, Snoopy. True, but on all the other days we will not. And it seems to me the issue is the glass half full or is it half empty? How many of you think the glass is half empty? You'd be ideologically stupid, wouldn't you, after everything I've said to admit. How many people think it's half full? How many people don't think? You know, the reality is it's both half full and half empty. But the reality is you can't do much with the top half. It's the bottom half that we've got to get people focused on. What is it we've got and not got? You know, every community I go to has what they call a needs map. And every philanthropic group, you want their money, tell us what is the problem we're going to solve. They want the needs map. It's important to know that. But most communities, that takes you 31 minutes to put that together. What I find that 99% of communities don't have is the asset map. And that's the one that you can use. You need both maps, but get people focused on the assets. Get people identifying those 6 critical categories of assets every small, teeny, tiny town actually has. When was the last time you got people into a room and compiled that community asset map so you got something to start with? This town kind of like put it onto their silos. It's just an amazing thing. And the critical asset to discover is the need to discover what it is that people care about. That's the most important question that you can actually ask in terms of doing it. Because once you know that, that's their motivation for getting engaged in what you're doing. Here in Canada, before COVID, I don't know if you're aware, did a survey of 100,000 volunteers. They gave them 10 motivations about why you volunteered. Choose the one that relates to you. And at the end of that 100,000 people they surveyed, 82% of them came out with one that simply said, I volunteered because someone who I know asked me to do something I like doing. Pretty simple to get more volunteers. But there is a catch. A, you've got to know what turns them on, and B, you've got to ask them. We had a study in Australia recently given the fact we've got this massive decline in volunteerism, and it asked people why they weren't volunteering. And 1 in 3 people said because no one's ever asked them. I mean, that's horrific. Ask needs to become part of our approach. Jody Kretzmann put it very well when he said, you know what, a strong community is a place that acknowledges people, gives them, provides an opportunity for them to give them. And a weak community is a place that doesn't do that. To me, people's contribution into community is so important. Look at this young girl, look at the skills she's got, 16. She does those type of beach stuff down on the sand at her beach and whatever. She's 16 years old. And I love this one. I saw at one of the fairs recently. Old people, old coots giving advice. It's probably bad advice, but at least it's free, you know. Again, role for everyone in our community. Let's discover the assets that people have. Don't ask people to do a job you don't want to do. Find out what they care about and build a job or a task around that in terms of where they're going. And assets, little town of Kaikoura. Here they had a 95% unemployment amongst the Maori people. They gathered one day under this guy, Bill Solomon, and said, look out there. We're fishermen that are now unemployed, but you know what? There's a whole pile of whales out there. We know as fishermen the damage they did to the whaling nets and fishing, but I wonder whether people might pay to come there. And a group of unemployed Maori families mortgaged their houses to buy a boat to take 20 people out to look at whales. They tell me they fitted 33 in most days and didn't tell the local council. And that grew now to the most impressive whale watch business on the planet. They employ over 400 staff. They've got a fleet of 6 ships. They own their own, kind of like a marina. Most amazing tourism business. But where did it start? One old bugger sitting there with members of his family and other unemployed people talking about what is it we've got and what can we actually do. And to me, I can give you countless stories of that stuff. And at the end of the day, you cannot possibly know what a community needs until you first know what they've got. Get into this thing called asset mapping. 5th thing, and I'm almost finished, is don't underestimate the importance of wow factor. In Australia, boy, we've got some ugly, teeny, tiny towns. No wonder people accelerate through them rather than slow down. They are so ugly. It doesn't need to be like that. And it's just great to see some of the communities around here. I just love it in terms of it. You can't afford, sorry you can't see that with those signs, you can't afford to have faded entire signage. You can't afford a window display like that. You can't tell me that that business person puts much effort into his kind of like display. Window displays. I love last night the number of your businesses had the lights on and the amazing window displays. It all makes a difference. And again, an idea I haven't seen taken off in Canada, and I think is an impressive one. This young woman off the farm, she went to become an artist, she came home, the town was dying, and she suddenly looked at those silos with fresh eyes, through the eyes of an artist. She said, you know what, we know their purpose is to store grain, we've been doing that for over 100 years. Guess what? They could also be the best canvas, kind of like art. What she did was to stimulate across kind of like the Mallee region of Victoria these amazing kind of like murals, some capturing the young people, some their indigenous folks, some of their young farmers. Absolutely amazing, floodlit at light, and we now have this amazing solo art trails that are running across kind of like the windows and whatever. Unbelievable. I'm just sorry you can't see the lights. And you know you're on a good idea when it appears on a postage stamp. And so it's taken off. And those towns have just multiplied in terms of economic life because they are a part of this amazing arts trail. How did it start? One young woman looking with fresh eyes at an asset that people have been looking at for 100 years that looked with different eyes. That's often what it's about. Number 6, the whole issue of what are we doing to create responses to lifestyle things that people are looking at. And we know that people, you know in this area, the number of people in COVID who wanted to move out of Toronto into the village experience. But what is it that we've got to do to attract and hold these people in terms of, we know their value. They're worth a lot of money to the local economy to get new people coming in. But we've also got to recognise there's a whole pile of issues. And in Australia today, we want young families, the issue of childcare, the issue of affordable housing have kind of like risen to the top. And as small towns, we've got to think about what are some of the options we can do to deal with those particular two issues, let alone all the other things that people are saying. And finally, in our towns, we need to have in place, in the words of Ernesto Ciroli, that person who is actually the facilitator, the broker or the group, who are kind of like working with people who've got an idea and wanting to turn it into kind of like some form of reality when it comes to them. I love the quote from Ernesto about during the earthquake in Christchurch, for example, one of the things they set up was the Ministry of Awesome. The government set up what they call the Ministry of Reconstruction, or what locals call the Ministry of Make Sure Nothing Happened. And locals created a Ministry of Awesome. And what was that? It was a Wednesday morning breakfast where you had a choice of tea, coffee or milk, or Milo, and a whole pile of bread with a set of toppings. And they invited 2 people each week, were given 11 minutes to do a pitch about a good idea to make their town a better place. They claimed that over a 3-year period that led to 300 new initiatives happening in the town. Simple stuff we can do. Amazing. I love what Awesome Ottawa does. They've got a group of people. They've got 100 people who give $10, and they've got 1,000, and they give $1,000 each month for a new idea to try to birth it. We can do versions of this type of stuff. But at the end of the day, there is a formula. There is a set of ingredients to grow a town. And they are the 7 tips, the 7 experiences that little town of Coolin have shared with me. They said, you know what, you've got to focus and make sure you're putting in place initiatives around making those 7 things and let become reality. And I close with one of my favourite quotes. It's this: "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Remember, we are not there to kind of like support people or to service people. We're there to create a community for all, where they are active as a contributor, kind of like making it happen. That, to me, is what kind of like community building is all about. Finally, the slide you've all been waiting for. It's morning tea time.